We don't need to stop it.
Won't make me look like an idiot.
No, why would I do that? Why would I try to make my sister look like to be an idiot? It is recording, by the way. She's not used to this stuff. This is all new. Anyways, this is my sister,
Hi.
Sarah. She is not my mother. The internet seems to think that she is my mom. She is not. My mom is 65. How old are you now?
I am 37. I will be 38 in June.
Yeah.
So 10 years, about 10 years difference.
Sarah's never been on my YouTube channel. She doesn't really do YouTube. We're just gonna jump right into this because people are always curious about my family. People always ask me if I have siblings, and the answer is yes, yes, and yes. I have a sister and I have a brother. My brother's been on here, my mom's been on here, but people really haven't ever really seen my sister, and this is her, not my mom. I need to stress that, not my mom. We do look alike, though, don't we? That's what
I'm
we
the
get told.
female version of him.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a good thing or not. So I brought my sister on today because in the past on this channel, I've talked about some personal experiences growing up in a very, very restrictive, conservative home. Very, 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 let me stress that, very, very much so. And I've talked a lot about my own personal experiences, but I wanted to bring my sister on today so we can talk just face-to-face, brother and sister talk about our childhood experiences. And I think she actually had it way worse than me.
I would agree with that.
By a large margin, because she was a female, and growing up in a restrictive religious household doesn't seem to be very kind to younger adolescent teens. Let's jump right into this. What do you think of having a brother who has a side hustle of YouTube?
I think it's pretty awesome. I wish I could do YouTube, but I am technology challenged.
And she wishes she could sell her feet, too. That's something that she's really envious of. And she's actually asked me for some advice. Brother has sold photos of his feet, and she actually asked me at one point, Daniel, how can I get in that market? And I gave her some real advice. There's a big market out there for some sexy toes.
I would call my site Twinkle Toes.
Twinkle Toes, yeah.
Twinkle Toes.
She actually did make a social media account with that name, by the way.
But I did nothing with it.
It hasn't been marketed yet, but
No,
we'll see. Maybe
I'm not going to.
Some potential there. What do you think of the fact that you've had some? Well, you had some pizzas delivered to your house, didn't you?
I did. We got a knock on our door and opened it up, and there was a pizza delivery guy from a pizza place that was not Domino's. It seemed like it was a family-run company, and they told us that we owed them, I think it was like $36 for pizzas, and we said, oh no, we have not ordered any pizzas, and they informed us that, oh yes, you did. And turns out that somebody, what's that word? Were doxxed.
Yeah, they were recently doxxed, actually this was a couple months ago, due to some people who don't like me and were trying to find out where I lived, and they found their location and put their personal information out there in a way to try to get to me, which is really frustrating. I don't know why people are trying to go after like her or her family or her husband because of me. Like, if you want to make it personal, come at me all you want. Don't go after them. Like, they're...
If you want to have pizza delivered for free, hey, I'll take pizza, but don't expect me to pay for it.
Yeah, you're not... And you're wasting employees' time.
I'm being...
This is a raincoat. We just put it on our dog. This is Mara. Come on. Stop. Get down.
I am loved. I'm gay.
Is growing up in our household with my mom and our mom and our dad, can you give me some experiences of how restrictive our family really was? At least Dad. Because I think since we're talking about this, my mom was always kind of the lenient one. My mom was always the more, after like a family fight with like our dad or something, our mom would always come and like give us like emotional support and say it's gonna be okay, I love you type of stuff. And then our dad was kind of just like this hammer, black and white, this way or the highway, get out, you're not welcome here, you can't live here unless you follow my rules specifically down to a T. And she experienced that a lot more, so explain some of the experiences to them.
So I think a lot of it stemmed from the cult that we were in.
Yeah, cult is a great word. Not enough people actually use that word to describe. I'm not saying all religion is cultish, but in terms of how a lot of religions treat people that are involved in it, it's very cult-like. And with cults, you pretty much have to meet a certain criteria with like information control and environmental control and social control, all that type of stuff. And we definitely grew up in a cult. I'm not saying Christianity is a cult, but how we grew up in terms of the family dynamic was very cult-like.
Yeah, so in first grade, my parents got involved in the Bill Gothard movement.
I don't even know what that is, actually. What is it?
Oh, so it's ATI. He started it. It's called IBLP, Institute of Basic Life Principles.
Oh,
and
sounds lovely.
So that was the movement, and then he had a branch of that called ATI, which was Advanced Training Institute, which was based on a homeschooling movement. And
we were both homeschooled, by the way. All three of us were.
Yes, and I will say I actually enjoyed my homeschooling experience. I liked it so much that I'm actually homeschooling my boys. But the ATI and IBLP that Bill Gothard was a part of, my parents paid money to be a part of this organization, and then they would send materials to my parents, and then they would incorporate that into our homeschooling curriculum.
Well, first thing is, this is ironic what she's saying, is because the church that we attended, we're not going to name it, but the church that we grew up at literally was a church that...
Majority of the people that were in...
95% of the church we grew up in, it was a Southern Baptist church. It was no skirts down to their ankles. Anything above the ankles was considered wrong, sinful. Women were supposed to dress this way in order to help us men not look at them. Lust, that's the proper term, lust after them.
Women were not to be eye traps to men.
Eye traps, yes. It's all the women's fault, by the way. You're not allowed to wear anything. You know, it was horrible. It was so, and the proper term is sexist. It is. I don't know how I got through it. I don't know how you got through it, because you're the one who had to dress a particular style all the time.
Thankfully, Mom and Dad did not require me to wear skirts down to my ankles, and in that fact, I'm grateful that they still encouraged me to wear pants, which on one hand was awesome because I could be myself, because I was a tomboy growing up. Basketball. I lived and breathed basketball. All the neighbor kids were boys, and I just grew up around boys. I enjoyed their company, and my parents were totally cool with that. But in the ATI Bill Gothard movement, that was not okay. And so going to this Southern Baptist church, and I'd show up on Sundays, I did have to wear a dress, but I could wear a skirt that hit my knees. And
yeah, but when you did do that,
that's what I was going to say.
There was issues in the church.
It came back to me that I was providing peekaboo sex to the men in my church because I had skirts. My parents allowed me to wear skirts that hit my knees.
Peekaboo sex.
Huh. Whatever that means.
Peekaboo. That is horrible. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so Mom and Dad, they took a lot of the ATI rules and regulations and incorporated them into our life, but they were not to the extreme as what ATI expected. So in a lot of ways, I was an outsider because my parents did not follow the ATI rules to the extent that they expected us to be. Like, for instance, rock music.
Ugh, here we go. Music.
In the Bill Gothard movement, and if you Google him, you'll find a plethora of information about how cultic it was. But any kind of music, even Christian music, was of the devil because of a backbeat. And I am serious. You go online, you will find a lot of people that were a part of the Bill Gothard movement, and you'll see all the different kinds of stuff that you were told to stop doing. So if one was not listening to rock music, or even Christian music, if it had any kind of backbeat to it. In the church that we attended, no drums of any kind were allowed.
Yep.
Even the guitar that I started playing with a gentleman on stage was if we strummed.
I remember that.
If we strummed at a certain, I don't even remember
frequency,
what it was.
Frequency, pitch. I don't know. I'm not a guitar player.
The strumming, if we strummed too fast, it was considered evil, and we were told to slow down our strums on our guitar. So it was a lot of crazy stuff.
People don't believe me. I've had people literally doubt me, and when I describe stuff like this, they're like, "There's no way that you grew up that way." We did.
We did.
We did, and in part, it's also why, like, I'm 28. Am I 28? Yeah, I'm 28. I feel even now like I feel super sheltered. Like, the amount of music that I was never able to listen to growing up, and all my when I went to college for my first time, I was overwhelmed being around people who I was socially stunted growing up because of how I was raised, because of the church people that I interacted with. I only saw them once a week. I had all these conditions. I couldn't listen to particular music, and if I did, I was mocked and ridiculed, and I got in trouble.
I will say, after I left the home, and I came back to visit one time.
Come on, get down.
I came home and I heard you listening to rock music, and I got mad.
Yeah, she did.
Because I was like, hey, growing up, I didn't get to listen to any of that. Why does he get to after all these years?
Well, my parents did lax a lot after my brother and her left. They did go they went a little bit easier on me.
A lot easier.
A lot easier on me. In terms of things they weren't allowed to do, I was. But that's not to say, like, I was threatened to be kicked out multiple times. And that's actually how I got kicked out. I got kicked out of my parents' house by age 21. Did I ever tell you this? Why Dad kicked me out?
No.
Okay, so I got kicked out because my mom would have Bible studies at her house. And I like video games. I play video games a lot, all the time, almost every day. And when I get really angry at games, I swear like a sailor. And my mom's having her Bible study, and through the hallway into my room, you just hear me scream profanity. Max, like me yelling profanity, just maximum, I can't cuss on my channel anymore, which really sucks. But, if you've been a follower of my channel for any amount of time, I used to swear a lot on this channel. And that was it. That was it. My mom came into my room and she's like, you need to calm down. You need to stop swearing because I have a Bible study in the other room with a bunch of old ladies all over age 50 reading the Bible. And here's my son screaming and yelling and using profanity. And my dad lost it and basically said, you need to be out in like 6 months. You're not welcome here anymore. And did I ever tell you that he threatened to kick me out for getting a piercing? Yeah. If you go back further enough on my channel, I had a snake bite and an earring. They were fake. They were a fake snake bite and a fake earring.
Oh, I was gonna say, I never remember you getting one.
Well, that's because I hid it from them. I had an earring on this ear.
Seriously?
Yeah, it was fake. It was one of those clip-on earrings. It was a fake one that I would wear in my videos because I love piercings. I love piercings a lot. And Mom and Dad thought that if I had a piercing on my ear, it meant that I was gay. So, if that says anything about, facial jewelry, a guy wanting to express himself in any way, that says a lot right there. An earring means that a person is gay. But I grew up with all of these type of weird, if I do this, I must be this type of person.
And I think that really does stem from the ATI Bill Gothard movement. I think growing up, Mom and Dad, they wanted the best for us. I really do.
No, they definitely did.
And the way that Bill Gothard worded his stuff growing up. It sounded appealing, it sounded right, but when you got down into it and really started to study it, it was lots of legalism and rules and an outward appearance. That's what it was. We started in ATI when I was in first grade, and we did it through first grade, and then when I turned 18, my parents learned about a finishing school that Bill Gothard was offering in Texas. It was a 2-month school, and they advertised it as a opportunity of 2 months of your daughter's learning how to
be a real woman.
To be, basically, that's how they viewed it.
It's
It's
a biblical woman, a woman of
Proverbs 31 woman.
Yeah, Proverbs 31, if you know that.
And one of the things about it, they advertised it as your daughters will learn how to do floral arranging, cake decorating, first aid. Looking at the paper and the pamphlet, it looked appealing. I had no desire to go to a school for 2 months in Texas, and I told my parents that I did not want to do it. I'd had my experiences growing up in this Southern Baptist church and the seminars we had gone to, and I said I didn't want to do it. They highly encouraged me to, but they said since I was 18, they couldn't make me, but they kept pressing me, and they made a deal that if I would go for the 2-month school, or finishing school, then we would drop out of ATI. And at that point, I had my 2 younger brothers involved in it, not as heavily as I was, but it was definitely something where
It's okay.
I didn't want my youngest brother Daniel to experience the judgment and the life stuff and the rejection and the stuff that I had experienced, because they had, in ATI, they had a men's or young men's training program. I can't remember the name of it, but there was one in a different state, and I know my parents would have loved for him to go to that if possible, and all I could think about was, if I just do this 2-month school, we can drop out, we don't have to be, my family doesn't have to be a part of it anymore, and then we can be done. I didn't like it, I didn't want to be a part of it, but it was a way to just get out of it. So I hopped on a plane and went to this school. It was not a school, it was a brainwashing prison, is what I would call it. When I got there, I learned that you were not allowed to leave the building. You had to be in this hotel. I actually have a picture of it. It was the Ambassador Hotel in Dallas, Texas. Mysteriously enough, this last year, it burned down.
Praise the Lord!
I don't know how. They still don't know how it happened, but it did burn down. But the Ambassador Hotel, and being a part of it, I feel like there was at least probably 50 to 100 ladies. Before I hopped on the plane, I had to sign this contract, page after page. It's been, almost 20 years. I can't remember the exact stuff, but basically I will listen and obey and be respectful of the rules of this finishing school. It was called Excel. Excel stood for Excellence in Character. What was it? Excel stood for Excellence in Character, Education, and Leadership. And so I got there and was informed that this Ambassador Hotel, we would be living there for 2 months, and we were not allowed to leave the building. One of the other things was when we got into our room that we were not allowed to have any books of any kind, no magazines, no radios, no TVs, no cell phones, and so all of that.
Well, what were you supposed to do then in the room? Just nothing? Just sit?
Sit and clean. That was one of the things, was big on cleaning.
Oh yes, nothing like some good old-fashioned stereotypes, right?
cleaning, visiting with the other ladies, and memorizing scripture out of the King James version.
King James. So
King James. So
King James version of the Bible.
These and thous.
Thou shalt not. Thee is.
So I informed them when I got there that I was required to memorize 3 verses a day. And if you didn't memorize 3 verses a day, you would receive a project. And a project would be something where, how do I put this? So you're not allowed to leave the building, but once a day for 1 hour, we would walk across the street to a park. And they had this big, huge loop in the park. And we could walk around the park for an hour. That was our exercise for the day. We were not allowed to run. I believe I was on either the 5th or 6th floor of this hotel. They had a working elevator, but they would not allow any of us students to use it. We had to walk single file. I'm serious. And we were not allowed to skip steps to get to our rooms. So we would have different projects and different activities, and we'd have to go up these flights of stairs one at a time. And I'll never forget, there was one time that I had forgotten something up in my room, and our lecture was about to start, and you had to be at the lecture 5 minutes before it started. And I had forgotten something up in my room, and so I was like, oh my gosh, I need to get it before it starts, otherwise I'm going to get a project. And so I went up the steps, and I skipped a few steps, and there happened to be a leader coming down the steps, and she stopped me and informed me that I would be receiving a project because I skipped steps. And I looked at her and I said, where does it say that in the rule book? Because I sure don't see it. I've never heard that. And she was taken back by that. It was I had a rebellious spirit at the school.
Yes, asking questions. Asking questions. That's another thing we grew up with. You simply ask or question anything.
And
you're labeled in this category of you're rebellious. You're like this. You're this bad person. You can't question anything. And let me tell you, you have children, but you cannot teach people that. That is one of the most destructive things, is to tell children or young adolescents or teens that you can't question things. You can't ask questions. You can't question authority in any degree.
But from now on, you need to be walking like a lady and not skip steps.
What does walking like a lady even mean, honestly? Like a perfect little strut, what, are we in the 1800s?
Yeah.
Like, honestly, what does that even mean, walk like a lady, walk like a man? Like, I don't know. I didn't know that you mentioned that there was a one for men. Yeah. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's Alert. It was called Alert.
Oh, I remember Alert.
Yeah.
There was a couple people who went to that at my church, Alert. And I remember, actually, it was my ex-girlfriend's family son went to that. Her son went to Alert. And I remember when he came back, he was like really weird and was acting really bizarre and strange.
It's brainwashing to the finest.
Like, from what I understand, Alert was like this kind of like military Christian-esque like school.
And I can't even imagine what the men's school would be if it was what it was for me. And this finishing school of cake decorating and floral arranging and sewing, that's what my parents thought it was, and that's how they portrayed it, but it wasn't that. It was literally sitting at a table, hearing lecture upon lecture upon lecture, memorizing scripture, and I love memorizing scripture. I have nothing wrong with that. I love Jesus. But the way that they went about it, it was rules, legalism, outward appearance. We all had to wear skirts down to our ankles. They measured our skirts when we got there. It could only be 3 inches from the ground. And if it was above 3 inches, you were not allowed to wear it. So you can imagine, I joked with my friends that we were like freaking penguins. Having skirts down to our ankles, climbing 5 to 6 floors a day, multiple times a day, and not being allowed to use the elevator, not allowed to run. For 2 months, I was not allowed to run. I was a basketball player. Like, it killed me to be a part of this. There were no snacks allowed. So it was like a prison where you have your breakfast, your lunch, and your dinner. That was it. You occasionally would get like a granola bar if you were going to go outside for the 1 hour walk. But we all had to wear white shirts and navy blue skirts. That was the dress code there. And yeah, if you didn't memorize your 3 verses a day, you would get a project. And that project was you would be not allowed to go to the park and go outside for fresh air.
So the project was punishment. Project was just a way.
Project equals punishment. Yes.
Just a punishment. Did I ever tell you that? Well, my parents sent me to a thing called Worldview Academy. Did you know about that? No.
That sounds familiar. Is that in Canada?
No, it happened in Seattle, Washington, but it was called Worldview Academy, and basically it was because I was questioning my religion, because I'm an agnostic atheist, but I was questioning stuff, and my dad didn't like the fact that I was questioning things and asking questions that he didn't have direct answers to, specifically in the Bible and stuff like that. So they sent me to this thing called Worldview Academy. Now, it wasn't super restrictive like that, but it was literally, I sat and did these lectures. I was at the Seattle University for like a week, and it was all Christian, but it's called Christian apologetics, where basically I'm hammered with defending Christianity on like a philosophical, logical level. I hated it. A lot of it didn't make any sense, and it was basically demonizing anybody who thought differently and who didn't believe in certain philosophical ideologies that align with Christianity. It was very, very anti any thought outside of its own, worldview. I hated it. I didn't like it at all. And my parents thought that would make me a better Christian. It did not. It had the reverse effect and made me want to leave more. Can we establish the fact that do not repress your children? I don't care what religion you're from or what you identify as. Don't restrict your children's education and put them in a place where they're socially stunted with education and socialization skills.
I will say with ATI, they did not condone women getting an education. And that's one thing I really loved about my parents is they totally disagreed with that. They thought that I needed to go to college and get an education, which I did. But there were several people that I was acquaintance friends with that gave me their 2 cents and told me that I should not be going to get an education, that I should be looking at getting married and being barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen. And that did not go well.
What a productive lifestyle. So you realize that by that idea of not educating a woman properly on anything, that is a way that they use
control.
It basically puts the woman in a position where she doesn't know anything and she thinks this type of behavior is normalized. Especially with the husband being so like overbearing and everything, and that woman gets this idea that this is normal behavior because that's how she was raised, and it's not. It's absolutely not.
Women should be loved, they should be respected, and they should be cared for. It just, it makes me so upset that Excel is still going on today. This cult with Bill Gothard, he has stepped down because of sexual allegations, and it went to court and all this. He's no longer the head guy of it, but Excel is still going on today. They've renamed it. They have a different website now for it. I can't remember the name of it.
After this video, I'm gonna take a deep dive into it because I'm actually curious. Like, that could actually I could make a video on that whole subject if it's still ongoing.
Oh, it is. I think they have it. Oh yeah, go look online. It's still very prevalent. There is a awesome website called Recovering Grace that is specifically for people like me that have been in ATI and who have had experiences, and where it's a platform where we can share and talk about our experiences. And if anybody who's watching this video used to be a part of ATI, it's a great place.
Or leave a comment down below, by the way. That's what the comment section's for. I know there's been a lot of people who've experienced growing up in a Southern Baptist church. that I've definitely had a lot of conversations with and can relate to a lot of what I've described with how I grew up, and probably with now you, how she grew up.
It has definitely changed my point of view on how people should be loved and cared for. Being in this and being an outsider, even though we were a part of it, my parents, I think I shared earlier, they were not extremists. They were not what we would call a Gothardite. That's what the extreme, the Duggar family, they are huge proponents of Bill Gothard and ATI. Growing up and now having my own kids, I have been able to parent in a way that I didn't have when I was growing up. I want my boys to express themselves. I want them to be able to feel safe. If they have a question, they can ask it and not feel like they're being rebellious in asking that question. So, yeah.
I definitely relate to that.
You could easily be a prisoner of... I could easily be a prisoner of my past, but I'm choosing to make this a lesson for myself and what I can learn from it. And I want to show my kids that everybody should be loved and welcomed and accepted. And just because you are wearing a freaking skirt down to your ankles and you're quoting King James Bible, that doesn't make you any better of a Christian. It's not about the outward appearance. That's what people are about. The outward appearance.
No, our whole church was that, really.
It was
always
all about the outward
thing.
appearance, but God looks at the heart, and that's what it's about. It's not about the outward appearance. I freaking have my head shaved. I have earrings. I have many tattoos all over my body. That doesn't make me any less of a Christian at all. I love Jesus, and I will continue loving Jesus just the way that I am, and he accepts me for who I am.
But I hope this kind of gives an insight more in depth of how I grew up, how she grew up. I don't really talk about religion much on this channel anymore. It's something that I've kind of dropped because I'm not really invested into it. But I do know that in this current day and age, it's still, the cults part of the religion aspect is still really prevalent in the USA, specifically in like Mormonism. And man, Mormonism, I don't know if you know much about Mormonism, but how that religion treats women, woo! You think Southern Baptist is bad.
Really?
Yeah, it's horrendous. It's absolutely horrendous. But yeah, I just want to say, this is my sister. Thank you for sharing her experiences.
Yeah,
of course. I also want to let you guys know that she has an Instagram, and I'm going to promote that here. What's it called?
The Spotted Goddess.
The Spotted Goddess. Okay, so I'm going to post the link down below in the description of this video. But what do you do on that Instagram?
So it is it's a Instagram of my Great Dane, Daisy, a harlequin. She is gorgeous, and I love dressing her up and doing funny memes with her and doing fun stuff with her. So you should check it out. I'd love to see
Give her a follow, please.
Yes.
It's
follow for follow. I will follow you, I promise.
I don't know if you should say that. You're going to get some weirdos.
Okay, scratch that. Edit that. Follow me, or follow my dog, the Spotted Goddess.
The Spotted Goddess, yeah. Link right here. All right, thank you guys, and I'll see you guys next week. Peace.